To było chyba coś elektrochemicznego, a on tego nie zauważył. Ren, świetnie. Po prostu super. Dobrze. Czas ponownie przyjrzeć się temu miejscu. Dlaczego wrzucają tu niewinnych ludzi? Czy nas spotyka za coś kara? Nie zrobiłam nic, żeby na to zasłużyć. Przestańcie. Jak nie możecie ogarnąć całości, nie próbujcie. Myślcie w prosty sposób. Patrzcie na to, co macie przed sobą. To on tak mówił. Pierdol się, Quentin. Nie chcę umierać. Patrzę realnie. Nie zbudowali tego, żebyśmy sobie mogli wyjść. A dawaliby nam wskazówki, skoro nie ma wyjścia? Uważasz, że coś dla nich znaczymy? Daj nam spokój, my szukamy wyjścia. Nie wyjdziecie stąd. Wyjdziemy. Nie. Wyjdziemy. Stąd nie ma wyjścia.
Hey everyone, it is January the 1st, 2023. And I know most people, they put out their video yesterday or today, and it's all about saying goodbye to 2022 and saying hello to this more wonderful year. Of course, all we've done is we've just moved from one date on a calendar to another date. There's no reason at all why this day should have any different significance to yesterday, other than some calendar tells us we're supposed to, as opposed to if we were dealing with an actual astronomical event, a solstice or an equinox, because at least then you would have an actual marker date that is guaranteed every year and could be tracked by people. You wouldn't need a calendar at all. You would just need the right setup to track the sun and the stars, and you would have an exact day and an exact energetic structure. So obviously we are going through, again, that's all been taken, another thing that's been taken away from us, the simplest thing of how to track time in this realm is taken away to an arbitrary calendar and supposedly having a celebration to move from one day that means nothing to another day that means nothing. It's just another example of the craziness of our reality that we've been set up to deal with. But I thought I would come out today just for a couple of small things for you. One I want to talk a bit about is the non-player character idea. And the reason I'm talking a bit more about it is I've mentioned it a few times in videos or interviews, and it's a work in progress. It's not like it's a concept that I've fully fleshed out all the information on and I've got all the answers to this. No, it's something that many people are working on all at once, trying to use the metaphor to understand where we are. And I'm just in the process of doing that. And I noticed some comments to videos over the last several weeks that I thought were not, or at least I wasn't being clear at what I was trying to present. And of course I wasn't clear either, so I'm going to make a few changes to that. So what I'm calling a non-player character, because it comes across as like a robot, and it's not really true, as I've come to learn to over time come to see this. I see what I would classify the difference between a non-player character and a human is that a non-player character has all of what we would call human traits. They have the same biological structure. They have the same DNA structure as a human. They have the same instinctual things. They have the same tissues, the same cells, the same atoms, the same molecules, similar thinking structures, it's all very similar. There's there's really not much of a difference between the non-player character and the human. The humans and the non-player characters. Let me change that. When a fetus, I think, is first formed, we're all non-player characters. It doesn't matter, human or what eventually becomes non-player. We all start as non-player characters. Everybody, every single form in the realm comes in as a non-player character. The difference is certain of the non-player characters right in the womb are chosen for some reason for the divine spark. For the soul is going to hook into this particular human character. And as soon as the soul links into one of the characters, it gains an extra body. Meaning, we have several layers or several bodies, right? There's a material body, there's an etheric body, there's an astral body. Each one, as it goes down, much more dense, much more difficult, much more trapping. The soul, though, or a divine spark, adds an extra body that the non-player character will not get. It's like a secondary, what's the word I can use? Very deep contemplative thinking mechanism. And I think so that's one part. The other part is by having the divine spark within, there's a secondary energy source. I think all the non-player characters, of course, come with an energy source. Everyone who's walking around that looks human is generating loosh. The system is getting getting stuff from them, from just general suffering. Those that are human have two different things, though. Because we have an extra energy battery, we produce more loosh. So by creating specialized suffering for the humans, for more humans, the ones that are actually human here, we're dealing with you're dealing with much more energy. Now that energy can be used for very powerful purposes. Now that doesn't mean that you could tell 1,000 people on the street, pool your energy together and something big's going to happen. No, because 950 of them are going to be non-player characters, and their energy is limited to biological functioning here, to just being a semi-sophisticated animal on planet Earth. I'm downplaying that, but I there's no really other way to say it. I'm not trying to belittle the non-player characters. They are fully functioning, fully thinking, fully operative people. It's just the humans who have this, the ones who become human, who have a divine spark within. There's a secondary source of power. There's a secondary philosophical questioning, critical thinking mechanism. Let's put it that way. And that doesn't mean humans will use it, but the possibility is there for the ones that are not NPCs to dig into questions on a much deeper level, to not just superficially demand an answer, how is this happening? And then just get an answer and move on. The human will keep bashing their head potentially, looking for more, looking for a better answer. It also means that the range, particularly the range of, and I mean this depth not in a good way, the range of depth in that the pain and suffering that the human divine spark goes through can be much more deep, much more painful, much more, and again, much more existential, because there's also there's this extra energy body, there's this extra and it's a mental body. It's not emotional. This extra body is not in any kind of way dealing with feeling. It has nothing to do with your heart. It has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with any of these things, any of these concepts and these ideas. It's a connecting point to what's outside the matrix. That's what the one who is not a non-player character has. It has this. We have this energy structure. I say we because I'm one of them. We have this energy structure that is that is a link to to what's outside, to the original father, or what's outside the cave. The non-player character doesn't have that link, and so that means it is greatly hampered by the possibility of going into depth. But it also means that the non-player character won't go to they'll suffer and they'll be in pain and they will have psychological pain, but there are limits. There's limits to everywhere they can go. Not only is there limits to their philosophical seeking, limits to their critical attempts to understand reality and the self, there's limits to also how deep they will drop into despair, how deep they will drop into into the ramifications of the suffering long term, if that makes sense. And again, this is just something I'm working my way through. It's going to take a long time potentially to fully grasp this entire mechanism. It's just starting to flesh itself out for me. Because it may have sounded like I was belittling non-player characters. That's really not true. They're totally the same as the human, other than there's the divine spark is missing. So one extra energy body is missing and an extra energy source is missing. Everything else is exactly the same. You know, both can run a farm, both can build a car, both can fly an airplane, both can figure out very complex problems and find answers to them. Both can help somebody who's in difficulty that's they find on the streets, or there's the similarities are massive, but there's these little tiny parts that separate one from the other, and it's that additional part that is not just the recognition of what's different about us here. It's the thing that is can lead to escaping the matrix, to leaving the matrix, leaving the cave. It also helps to explain why we can have a lot of friendships, but it seems like certain friendships have a different depth. There's certain people that we know, and even though it doesn't necessarily sometimes make sense, that it would make sense if two people have the exact same um, likes and interests, right? If two people have similar likes and interests, similar ways of being, similar personalities, that's who should bond. But it's not often the way it is, right? Sometimes someone you're really connected to well and you like spending time with is not necessarily similar. There's complete differences, but you still get along really, really well. And I think that has to do with human to human connection, true human to true human, these energy bodies, these deeper fields. You're able to converse about subjects, you're able to go into depth about subjects, areas that you can't go into with the non-player character. You can still have similar conversations, but you'll always notice there's depth is a really good word. There's a lack of depth at the end of that conversation. Well, the human person you've had the similar conversation with, the depth is there. You leave that interaction and really feel like you've had a soul encounter, if I can say it that way, that you don't get with the non-player character. There's something missing in that exchange. I've also started to think back, because I'm trying to track now. One of the things I'm doing is I'm tracking back people that I've known in my life, like really, really well, like people that I've spent large amounts of time with, have been friends. I've had lots of friends, of course, because I've moved so often. So I've had different friends in different parts of the world. So it's not like I've had the same group of 10 friends all my life. They've changed constantly. And I'm trying to look through the levels of the friends that I've had, the depth that those friendships took on, the the can I tell the difference between someone I'm now classifying as a non-player character who I was a friend with and obviously had decent interactions and we enjoyed spending time, and someone who has this divine spark? How can I notice something different about my interaction with them than with the others? And I am starting to locate things like that. The same as with and this is also something you can check. You can check that in your life. Go through and think about that. You can also think about those you've had relationships, right? Those you've dated. It's also similar because again, there's just a natural deepening when you're sharing sexual activities with somebody. You start to notice whether a depth is there or isn't there somehow in the overlay of what you do, what you talk about, how you interact with each other. And I think some of those things help to indicate, and it doesn't just mean, oh, this one was human, this one's a non-player character, so because they're human I have to have a great perfect interaction with them. No, I mean, personalities are different, things are different, interests are different. You could be much more connected realistically to a non-player character if your personalities and certain aspects of your life connect better. But there just tends to be something different about certain individuals in my past that there's something different about the interaction with them compared to the others. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're tracking a bit of the difference between human and non-player character. I'm bringing that up because think um, I think the numbers are. I had originally said we're maybe talking 20% human, 80% non-player character. I think the numbers are much lower. In fact, the most I would give now is 5%, and I think it's much lower than that. Which is still a lot. I mean, if it's you say, well, 5%, that can't be. But 5% of 8 billion is 400 million. That's still a massive number on in this realm, right? It's still a huge number of potential human to human interactions that you can have. And I would assume, even though if you have a city of 1 million people, that would put at 5%, that would put 50,000 human people in a 1 million city. It means 950,000 aren't. They're just regular, regular humans, I guess, compared to, I don't know. I need a different term than non-player character. I need a different name because they're human, right? But then they're not robots. They're not like computer generated characters necessarily. The way I might have said that they're just they're exactly like us, but missing one element. That's all. It's like one. If you had a chain of chemical compounds, there'd just be one compound that's missing. That's all. Um, but even at 5% of a 1 million city, you've got 50,000 people there. So in the 50,000 people, and I think there would be, you would just naturally gravitate if there was 20 people in a room, you would gravitate to the one or two that are human for some reason. So I think human friendships build more likely if, the natural tendency would be 5 out of 100 of people that or the human, but I think it's different. I think just the way humans would feel interacting with each other, the number might be quite different. It might be 20 or 25% of our people that we classify as people we know and spend time with for one reason or another. The percentage is much higher because the bonding was easier. The bonding somehow happened. You didn't have to have a perfect interaction. This divine spark recognized the divine spark in the other, and that kind of overcomes some of the things that might normally cause friction between you and one of these. I'll use NPC for now, but we'll come up with a better. If you can come up with a better term for me in the comments, that would be great. If you can find another name that indicates these the people who exist here but are missing this one spark, this one body, this one, yeah. So we'll come up with a better name for it. I think you interact more clearly with them than you do with others, so you more naturally gravitate to having more friends. But that's just I'm working on this, right? I'm working on this, and so it's part of a lot of this came out of these new ideas came out. I've been watching The Good Place, the TV show that was out about 4 years ago, and the first season